Yes, everything set up properly? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So thanks so much for this wonderful invitation to participate in this panel. So what I'll present today is based on collaborative work together with Fernando van der Vlist from Utrecht University and a recent paper that we published in Big Data and Society. So in the context of this panel, we want to explore the relationship between platformization and assetization with respect to data. And as such, this contribution focuses on the infrastructural dimensions of assetization on the internet and the role of business partners in infrastructure building. So as we already heard also during the introduction, we understand this term platformization as the process by which the platform as a technological and business model expands itself into new territories, markets, industries, but also whole spheres of life, as well as by which individual platforms broaden their existing territories. So we argue how the platform model has been vital to the process of assetization as it manifests itself through partnerships and technical integrations, understood as modes of collective infrastructure building. So our case is situated within the global digital advertising market, which is enormous and vital to the internet and related industries, including cultural production and journalism. And here, digital advertising refers to the various data-driven advertising strategies and ad formats that appear on internet-enabled devices. Google and Facebook have long dominated the global digital ad market in terms of revenue share, and they're often called the duopoly, although Alibaba and Amazon are also gaining some territory. So Facebook is 99% an advertising company. And in the case of Google, 85% of its revenue comes from digital advertising. So in their work, Thomas Beauvisage and Kevin Mallet challenge the assumption that data equals value and argue that it's necessary to look more closely at what they call valuation situations to determine what accounts for the value of data. And these questions are situated within the current debate on assetization, which, I quote, examines how assets are structured and how a variety of things can be turned into assets, where an asset is anything that can be controlled, traded, and capitalized as a revenue stream, end quote. So thinking through data in terms of assetization then challenges the idea that data, all data, are somehow inherently valuable or useful. Instead, the question is how or when data are made valuable or useful, which is the result of various situated measurements, processes, infrastructures, and practices that co-constitute the assetization process of data. So it's worth noting, as Keen Birch and colleagues have argued, that it's not even necessary to understand data itself, but rather the users that are actually understood as assets. So these users here are turned into data assets, which is also our key area of interest here. So crucially, the process of assetization relies heavily on many different types and layers of infrastructure, actually software infrastructure. So we emphasize here the infrastructural dimension of this assetization. So in their work, Beauvisage and Mallet also note how something simple as a web cookie has actually become the basis for what they call a complex and intricate market data-based infrastructures for data-related goods, which has been created thanks to marketing professionals. So of specific interest here to us is the so-called programmatic advertising, where ads and audience commodities are automatically traded and served across many channels and geographic regions in mere milliseconds through real-time bidding ad auctions that are, as Alaimo and Kalinikos have described, as dizzying computational and organizational complexity. So this year, this form of automated advertising actually accounts for 72% of the global digital ad spending. So what kind of software infrastructure then is implied here? And how can we even make these hidden yet critical systems and infrastructures of automated advertising visible? And what is the role of data in this? So what we found is that advertising, as both a practice and an infrastructure, depends considerably on business partnerships. These business partners are very large companies that platforms such as Facebook and Google have vetted for their expertise and which provide marketing and advertising capabilities. And they help manage advertising campaigns on behalf of brands and other businesses. So in the previous study with David Niebuhr from the University of Toronto, we examined Facebook's partnerships. So Facebook and all other social media platforms offer business partner programs and a directory of partner solutions where other businesses can find out who is connected to Facebook's advertising and marketing platform and which services they offer. So these partners do many things, including, and here come some buzzwords, audience management, ad tech integrations, campaign optimization, reporting and analytics, and they also provide data audiences and data segments. And most of these partners are in reality very large and market-leading companies in certain areas, who all develop and integrate their own tools, products, and services with Facebook's advertising platform. So these business-to-business partners include Fortune 500 companies and known data brokers. And over the year, as we studied, there have been many of these programs and partnerships. So in digital marketing and advertising, it's very common to form these partnerships to gain exclusive access to data or users. And it's these exclusive resources that ultimately provide and control the access to that data or to those users. And it's not about getting the data itself, which would be bad for business. So what's important then is how partnerships serve to govern access to these exclusive resources, which involves technical API-based integrations between multiple software platforms. So this mechanism of these integrations is what leads to the emergence of this ecosystem of software platforms around social media platforms such as Facebook. So if approved or certified, these business partners gain access to a platform's exclusive resources through their business-facing marketing and advertising APIs. Partners need this API access to develop these programmatic or automated advertising solutions and to build their own tools and technical integrations, which they can't do through these self-service tools that are offered to smaller businesses. So in the case of digital advertising, it's not necessarily the data itself that represents value, but the programmatic access that it facilitates to these broad and specific audiences segments all over the world. So in this empirical study, we took stock of all the partner programs and partnerships that we could find for the top 20 most used social media, including Chinese, Japanese, and Korean apps and platforms. And we found over 1,500 partnerships in total. We then extracted the names and details for each partnership. This network diagram then shows the map of all these partnership relations, where each node is a company and each connection is a partnership relation. So this diagram is quite large, and we have still a lot to study still. But it uniquely shows the topology of the entire business partner ecosystem of social media, which relationships are unique, which ones are shared, and so on. And it's notable that while social media are separate entities for consumers, they're simultaneously connected and integrated in the back end for business users. So what we see here is an organizational network of companies that have integrated social media with what we call the audience economy, predicated of the trading of audience commodities. So among the most connected partners are marketing cloud platforms providing so-called multi-channel or cross-channel marketing solutions. And in addition, we find many audience data providers. And these include very big players such as Oracle, Adobe, Salesforce, Spreadfast, but also SAP, which we just learned about. And it also includes known data brokers such as Axiom and Experian, and so-called identity solutions of people piecing together identities online, such as LiveRamp. However, this is not only an organizational network. Because of the technical integrations based on API connections, actually the pipes that run between the nodes, this is also, or maybe even principally, a technological network, or the software infrastructure facilitating and supporting programmatic advertising practices. And here, data is vital for its capacity to facilitate this ecosystem of programmatic tools, products, and services, collectively referred to as advertising. And data then could be seen as a medium that facilitates the process of assetization. So in the next step, we expanded this initial network with the business partnerships of all the data intermediaries that were in it. As it turns out, these data intermediaries of the previous network also come with their own extensive networks of business partnerships. So in total, we'd identified nearly 10,000 partnerships and technical integrations that collectively sustain the use, collection, and activation of audience data across a multitude of platforms and industries. So in the expanded network, we find data vendors, data brokers, data marketplaces, ad exchanges, ad networks, demand and supply side platforms, publishers, and many more related to audience data. So what we see is this organizational network of companies that have built and collectively sustain the global digital advertising infrastructure, which in its turn sustains most of the web. So among the most connected nodes are data management platforms and customer data platforms, which both Visage and Mallet similarly consider a key infrastructure for the assetization of data. Because these platforms help turn data into assets by repurposing the data for their clients' purposes, thereby making it valuable or useful. And as such, this data is often also used for purposes other than originally intended. So collectively, these companies have built and sustained the infrastructure for the sourcing and activation of data for many purposes, including ad targeting. Now, it's interesting, though maybe not surprising, that this network largely overlaps with the so-called tracking technology ecosystem, the trackers embedded on websites and apps that track people's activity, such as the Facebook like button or Google Analytics. So these networks actually intersect, because nearly 600 of the partners in our network are known to operate trackers to source their own data based on a cross-reference with Ghostry's largest database of trackers. And furthermore, there has been a lot of consolidation in this domain. There have been many mergers and acquisitions, not only because of the value of the data, but also because of the integration networks to activate that data. So here data becomes data assets through these so-called data activation regimes. And these entangled infrastructure actually facilitate these data activation regimes. So these mappings of the entangled global and also local infrastructures supporting the audience economy and our underlying data markets can help to make visible the invisible networks of data collection, processing, activation, and exchange to also locate sources of strategic and infrastructural power. So to conclude, platforms and partnerships are both vital to the global audience economy by facilitating programmatic advertising practices that account for much of social media revenues. So the API-based technical integrations between partner software systems are functionally necessary to run these ad campaigns across different sites and apps where the audience are located. And in this, these business partnerships serve to govern access to APIs or other exclusive resources, including data. So we thus understand platformization as an infrastructural process that facilitates data assetization, which emphasizes the techno-economic and financial motivations behind it. So specifically, platformization allows for the distributed creation of software infrastructure by partners that is necessary to source and activate data from and to different places. And we might even say that data functions as a medium to facilitate data-based processes between software companies. and as an interface to audiences, users, by enabling programmatic advertising, ad targeting, and other automated practices. So partners does play a very important role in platformization because they build, extend, but also sustain the infrastructures that underpin assetization through data. And this also means that platform power does not only reside or consolidate in big tech companies, but that partners also benefit and share in some of this strategic and infrastructural power in the ecosystem. Thank you.